Today, this is F1. This is the third class. After that, so today we will go through the third chapter of F1, and the chapter is organizational culture. Organizational culture. So, what do we mean by organizational culture, or you can say corporate culture? So, give me a while. If you go to a bank, one is government-oriented bank, another is, suppose as for example, private-oriented bank, right? Or you can go to a government-oriented school or private-oriented school, right? Suppose, take an example of a school. Just take an example of school. If you go to a public school or if you go to a private school, both are providing education service, but you see differences, right? The way they interact with the people, the way they are providing service, their classroom, their way of dressing, they are conducting activities, this, everything. Both are school, both are providing education service, but they are different, right? So differences may be there. So initially, what do you mean by organizational culture? This is culture. What you see in an organization, that is all about culture. So in this segment, we can share some description, or we can share some description provided by some expert people. As for example, initially we'll go through Hill and Jones. Hill and Jones. You need to memorize this name according to the description or theory they provide, because this question actually asked in F1. Okay. So, according to Hill and Jones, Hill and Jones said that is organizational corporate culture means a collection of norms, values, way of conducting, then you can say behavior, beliefs, attitude, behavior, everything possessed by the individual organizational people, which control how they interact with them, as well as with their stakeholders, right? So according to Hill and Jones, we are saying that is Hill and Jones are saying that is culture means a collection of norms, values, etc., etc. That is, these are possessed by individual employees, right? Okay. Now the fact is, this is more vague, but we can handy is describing culture in more straightforward way and more easier way. What is that? Handy is saying that culture means the way we do things around here, or you can say the way the employee do things around the organization. So what we have all discussed earlier, right? So as a whole, we can say that is culture means some cluster or composition of norms, values, beliefs, attributes, etc., etc. by some employees that actually control their behaving or their way of interaction to other people or with their stakeholders. That is all about the culture. Clear? Now, another important thing is, if you go to different organizations, both will possess distinctive culture. Different organization, different culture will be there. Some specific things may be acceptable in one culture, may not be acceptable in another culture, right? So that's why behavior accepted in one culture may not be accepted in another culture. So organization is with distinctive culture. Even another important thing is, that is, this organizational culture can be changed drastically or massively because of a strong or because of a major event changes. As for example, if the ownership of the organization changes, it is obvious the culture of that organization also changes. As for example, initially, company A is a sole trader organization, sole trader business. Whatever the culture it possesses initially, when it becomes the partnership or something like other, then its culture will be totally different because of the change in ownership, right? So this is all about culture. Clear? Now, in culture, in corporate culture, in corporate culture, there are three main components you can say or you can go through. Three main components in corporate culture. That is norms, symbol or symbolic action you can say, values or you can say belief. In a corporate culture, there are three different components. Three components are there. Already we have said that is corporate culture means the combinations, combo or collection of norms, values, beliefs, etc., etc. Right? The way of doing things within that is all about culture. So, culture there are three different components: norm, symbol or symbolic action, another is belief or values. What do we mean by this? Norms, etiquettes. Norms, that means knowledge of the thing right or wrong. Norms, as for example, in Muslim culture, we actually show respect to our seniors, right? It is our norms. It is our etiquette, right? So norms actually the boundary of wrong and right. Think yourself, if you go to a private organization, you can see people are there very much well dressed up, well groomed up. They are behaving in more professional way than the people in the public limited companies or normal government oriented companies, right? This is norms. Then symbol or symbolic action. Symbol. Just initially think an example. Standard Chartered Bank. What do you see there? When you go in front of a Standard Chartered Bank, you can see some color, right? Green, sky, green. That is friendliness. Then, if you go to the Islamic Bank, the symbol is Islamic Bank. Banking activities depend upon the Islamic criteria or Islamic concept, right? So, symbol or symbolic action, you can say the objective or core goal or core function of the business organization. You can see this, right? Okay. This is symbol and symbolic action. So, you can say the difference between a Standard Chartered Bank and Islamic Bank. Both are providing banking service, right? But their goal is different. Standard Chartered Bank is commercial bank. Islamic Bank is also commercial bank. But Islamic Bank actually provide you all kinds of banking service depend upon the Islamic ideas, right? Okay. So these are the symbol or symbolic action. Even you can say rituals. As for example, some business organization value their employees lot rather than other business organization. If you go to some private business organization, you can see that is those organizations celebrate their employees' birthday. So these are rituals, symbol, right? Okay. Then values or beliefs. values or beliefs, that means these are the belief comes from the inner side, or you can say the main objective for which the organization actually built, or on which the organization provide importance, right? Okay. So these are the three different components of corporate culture. Clear? So up to this level of discussion, if you make a gist, what do you mean by culture? Culture is the combination or collection of values, beliefs, norms, attitude, etc. possessed by individual employees or group of employees that control their way of behaving, that control how they interact with others, and that control how they interact with others, even with the stakeholders as well. In gist, you can say the way of doing things around the organization is corporate culture. Two important part of culture is one, different organizations possess different kinds of culture, distinctive culture, right? Something acceptable in one culture may not be acceptable in another culture. As for example, I can say that is red. Red. In our culture, the color red means dangerous. By using red, we actually want to show something dangerous is there. But in Chinese culture, red means joyfulness, joy, happiness. Right? Okay. Then, culture may be drastically changed if there is any kinds of major changes in the organization arises. As for example, change in ownership, change in social contribution of society, change in diversity. Or if, as for example, suppose initially one organization is dealing with manufacturing pen, now it is deciding to publish some kinds of books, that means drastically changes there. Even possession, acquisition, when one company possessed another company or acquires another company, it is imaginable or achievable that the culture will be changed. Clear? Okay. And culture has three different components: norms, symbols, and values and beliefs. Clear? Okay. Then, according to your book, components, you can say, component or factors that can create significant influence upon your culture. Or you can say some component or factors are there that can change your culture. Clear? We'll discuss on that. As for example, initially ownership. Ownership. We can say with the changes of ownership, the total organizational culture will be changed. According to accounting purpose, we have discussed there are three different kinds of organization, right? Sole tradership, partnership, limited liability company. Do you think the culture of these three different types of organization is same? Not that, totally different. Culture in sole tradership and culture in partnership and culture in limited liability company is totally diverse. Clear? Okay. So with the changes of ownership, you can assume that culture will also changes. Okay. Then size, organizational size. We have already discussed in the earlier chapter when we discussed about structural component of culture or structure of culture. Size means when the size or volume of your business organization, volume of the business organization changes. Just think an example. Initially, you take the initiative and there is a entrepreneurial structure. When the business outgrown or voluminousness, then it enter into a functional structure, right, from the entrepreneurial structure. That means it is changing its size because of its growth. and it is obvious the cultural aspects of the same organization also changed with the size changes. Initially, it was followed by one individual. Now it will be operated by several factors, or you can say function, right? Culture will be totally different, diverse. Here, then diversification. Diversification. What do you mean by diversification? Your business can change its strategy. As for example, business actually changes in decision making. That is, now the business will change the product. Suppose initially you are dealing with some kinds of pen manufacturing. Now you are taking decision to doing business in transport related business. Different kinds of business. Diversification is there. Okay. So it is totally assurable that culture in pen manufacturing and culture possessed in transport business will not be the same, right? So with the diversification, it is assumable that culture will be totally changed. Even you can say diversification in geographical location. Initially, you establish your business in Khulna region, suppose as for example. Now you take the decision to build up this business, same business in Dhaka, Chittagong or something other geographical location. It is obvious the market in two different segments will not be the same. The way of doing things will not be the same in two different markets. That means with the diversification, your culture will obviously change. Clear? বোঝা যাচ্ছে? Ownership, size, diversification. Then technology. With the technological advancement, as the organization changes technology or as the organization advances in its technological segment, with the technological advancement, the corporate culture of that organization also changes. Clear? So just think an example. Initially, when you enter the bank, you have to write a check, sign the check from the manager, and then you can cash the check from the cashier, right? So it was the culture in initial stage of business. But now, because of the technological advancement, you have a debit card or credit card, right? Within a second, you can use that card and you can withdraw money, or you can deposit money by using the ATM booths. So with the technology, your total culture totally changed. Clear? Okay. So these are the different factors you can imagine, or these are the different factors that actually affect the organizational culture to be changed drastically. Clear? Okay. Then come to the next segments. So up to this discussion, it is clear to us that culture is very important for organization, and there is a relationship between organizational culture, right? Okay. That's why we will go through, or to make ourselves clear according to your syllabus in F1, to make ourselves clear about the organizational culture, we have to go through the cultural aspects described by different writers. Here we'll discuss about the description provided by Henry Hofstede, and Skene. So these are the different writers who describe organizational culture in different way. To make ourselves clear, we have to go through this, and we must have to memorize the description with the name. I have already said that the name actually asked in your exam question. The question may be, so this is the structure who said this. You have to memorize that. Clear? Okay. Initially, we'll discuss about. তোমরা বুঝতে পারতেছো আমার কথা? আমার আজকে এই সাইডটা ব্যথা, আমার কথা বলতে কষ্ট হচ্ছে। So initially we will go through Skene. Skene. What is Skene actually saying about culture? Skene ki bolteche? According to Skene, the first leader, that means who are the founder of the business organization, the first leader actually establishes a specific culture. And the follower or the future leader, who may be the future leader? Future leader will be selected from those people who believe the initial culture, or who have faith on the culture, or who support the culture. That's why Skene is saying here there is a relationship, direct relationship between leadership and culture. This is the first segment. Second segment, Skene also postulated or described, that is, if you want to be a leader in a business organization, first of all, you need to know, or you need a clear idea of that culture. You need to understand the culture of that business organization, right? So this is said by Skene. So what is the gist of this description? Gist ta ki? Conclusion ta ki? There is a close and you can say positive relationship between leadership and culture. This is the number one. And second one, the organizational culture is actually established by the initial leader or founder, you can say. The following or the future leader, they just are the follower. They do not provide any kinds of culture. Or who may be the future leader? Future leader will be selected from those people who have faith, or who understand, or who support the existing culture. Right? So this is all about saying by Skene. Clear? Clear? Okay. Skene, end of the day, we can say, that is, if you want to be a leader in an organization, you need to know the culture of business organization, according to Skene. Right? So, if you want to know the business organization in this segment, Skene is saying that is, culture has 3 different levels. If you want to be leader, as you need to know the cultural aspects of business organization, so Skene is saying that is, in an organizational culture or corporate culture, there are 3 different levels. Number 1, 3 different levels. What do you mean by that? Or what actually is Skene saying? Level 1, artifacts. Artifacts. This is the seen part of the culture. This is easily seeable. You can see this aspect of culture easily. Just think an example. Mughal Samraj. Initially, when there is different kinds of what can I say, kingdom. If you go through that, there are sword, right? Now people, do you think now people are using sword? Now people are using guns. So guns is the artifacts of recent. A sword is the artifact of primitive society, right? So artifact, you can see this. So in the cultural aspect or corporate culture aspect, what do you mean by artifacts? Artifacts, that is things used by the organizational people or employees. As for example, dress coding. If you go to a private level organization or commercial organization, they will be dressed in properly or formal way. Or formal way of behaving you can see there. Right? So this is their artifacts. You can see this. Then, second level of culture according to Skene, that is espoused value. Espoused values. Values. You can think about slogan of the organization. As for example, suppose as for example, if you go in front of Standard Bank, what do you see? They are saying 24/7. That means they are always ready 24 hours, 7 days for their customers. So this is their symbol, this is their slogan, this is their objective. Even you can see the color, green color, they are using green color. Why? This is their slogan, that we are green banking. Then think about some departmental store or think about some organization who are using green color, green. By showing this, they are representing themselves, that is, we are friendly with the nature as well. Here, so slogans may be there, objective may be there. Objectives, slogans, or purpose, main purpose of the business organization. That is their espoused value. That means the factor on which they provide importance. Here, this is the second level. And the third level is basic assumptions. Basic assumptions. This is not the seen part of the culture. It remains within the culture. And you have to understand, you have to know this, and you have to make yourself clear about this sort of assumption which is existed. But the fact is, this is not written, this is not provided, you just have to assume from your conscious part. Here, think yourself. In some business organization, subordinate boss relationship is just like a friends. But in some business organization, subordinate and boss, there are formal relationship. So how you have to behave with your boss, it will not be written down. When you are joining any kinds of business organization, there is no sort of books who postulate or describe how you have to behave or how you have to talk with your boss. You have to know that. Depend upon the organizational culture. If the organization is very much supportive, that means there is very friendly relationship, now you can say how you have to talk with your boss. Right? But if the organization is very much rigid, formal structure is there, in that case, you have to know yourself how you have to behave. And the way of behaving must be different than the previous one, right? So these are the basic assumptions. And mostly people feel problematic when entering into new organization in this level. These are seen, so you can easily understand that these two things, but this is unseen part. That's why in basic assumption people may face problems. Clear? So according to Skene, these are the 3 levels of corporate culture you have to go through. Why? If you want to lead the culture, initially you need to understand that culture. And for make yourself clear or understand that, you have to go through these 3 levels of the culture. Clear? Okay. Then, this is all about Skene. Now, we'll go through Handy. Handy popularized 4 different dimensions of culture, or 4 different types of culture. According to Handy is saying there are 4 different types of organizational culture, and we have to go through that. What are the culture? According to Handy, these 4 are power culture, power, role culture, task culture, and person culture. What do you mean by power culture? Through through this power culture, Handy actually trying to say or trying to identify the entrepreneurial structure culture, or the culture possessed by small organizations who are in the earliest stage. Think about the entrepreneurial structure. In the case of entrepreneurial structure, we said that is the organization actually established around the owner manager, right? Owner manager is the ultimate source of power for that business organization. He can take any kinds of decision. He can control the business the way he behave or the way he think, right? So all the people just have to follow his instruction. There is no sort of career path, right? So the culture here is called power culture. That means here the Handy actually trying to say that is in these kinds of organization, all the powers, or there is only one source of power. Who is the source of power? That is the owner manager, the founder is the source of power, right? So their culture is different. Then come into the role culture. So you can say this is for entrepreneurship business, right? Now, as for example, suppose your business is outgrown, flower east. So when the business actually grown or flourished more than the previous, that is more than the entrepreneur structure, now you have to build up some other kinds of structure. We have already discussed there is functional structure may be there, right? Functional structure means divine the total activity of the business to some specific logical group, as for example finance, production, sales, distribution, etc., right? Now, so what do you mean by role culture? See, here in the case of power culture, all the power, there is one individual is the source of all power, owner manager. But here, activities are done by several functions, right? So several functions become the source of power. And when there are several functions, that means there are maybe several managerial posts as well, managerial level as well. And managerial level means individual will be provided different kinds of roles, regulation, responsibility and authority. That means here in the role culture, the individual actually possessed amount of responsibility and authority, and their presence is according to their role. As for example, chairman and managing director, these are the two different roles. They are playing different role according to their authority and responsibility. Clear? So this is role culture. So we can say you will find role culture in the case of functional or divisional segments, the structure, right? Okay. So you can also say in role culture there are bureaucratic problem. Bureaucracy is there because decision is taken from different ladder. So bureaucracy is there. Okay. Then come to the segment of task culture. Task culture. Here the people or here the employee is not presented according to their role, but they are presented according to the task they have accomplished or they achieved. You can think about the project. We have discussed project in matrix structure, right? Matrix structure, and we have discussed that is matrix is the combination of divisional and functional, right? Here, several people from several group and function are combined and they are provided a specific task to be achieved. After achieving the task, the project actually demolished. So whatever the culture you will find here, that is task culture. Task culture, why? Because here individuals are providing priority in accomplishing the task rather than anything, right? So this is task culture. Then person culture. Through this personal culture, Handy actually try to represent those kinds of organization. As for example, initially you can say law firm, audit firm. Suppose you are a barrister, In that case, you will have a firm, law firm. So how the activity will be done or how the work will be processed, everything actually comes from your own style or own way, how you want to. Audit firm, established depend upon the skill and knowledge for an individual who have knowledge about audit, right? So how the firm will be ongoing or how the firm will be activated. In every cases, the decision actually comes or the every cases, the task actually completed by that specific individual or person. Or even the activity as ongoing depend upon the decision taken by that individual person. That is person culture. Clear? So for example, you can say power means power culture in the entrepreneurial structure, role in the case of functional divisional structure, task in the matrix structure is project related, person to be defined. Clear? So these are the 4 different cultures postulated by Handy. Then Hofstede. Hofstede. We need to know what Hofstede actually is saying about culture. Hofstede did not describe the types of culture. Rather, what is the actually did Hofstede actually experiment 1 lakh employees of IBM companies in different country, and through this inspection or through this research, he actually bring 4 aspects or 4 dimensions of culture, rather defining the culture. Here he is not saying that there are 4 types of culture. He is saying that there are 4 dimensions of culture. What are the dimensions? Number 1. Individualism versus collectivism. Individualism versus collectivism. Hofstede saying that some culture are very much cohesive or you can say collective than some other kinds of culture. What do you mean by this? Or what the Hofstede actually trying to say in this? There is some culture are very much collective and some culture are very much individualistic. The culture who favor individualism, in those culture, employees are always want to assess themselves by their individual activities. But the culture who favor in collectivism, in those cases, employees want to assess themselves on group basis rather than individual performance. Understand? That is, one is individualism, another is collectivism. Individualism, here the employees or people want to assess themselves by their own or by their individual performance. এই কালচারে সে নিজে যা করছে ওইটুকুর মাধ্যমে অ্যাসেসড হতে চায়। But if the culture is collective, in that case employees want to assess group basis rather than individual basis. Clear? So this is individualism versus collectivism. That's why Hofstede is saying some culture is more cohesive or collective than some other culture. That means some are individual culture and some are collective culture. And you need to know that, because if you want to be a manager, effective manager, how you will assess your subordinates, you need to know that. If you are in a individual culture, part of individual culture, in that case you have to assess each employee's performance because they want to assess by themselves. But if you are a part of collective culture, in that case you have to provide them group task and group performance should be evaluated. Clear? Okay, then also number two, uncertainty avoidance. Uncertainty avoidance index. Uncertainty avoidance. Risk or uncertainty. What do you mean by this? When you take any kinds of decision means future things, the things you are going to do in future. And future is uncertain. And uncertain means risk may be there. So think yourself, some people, you can see some managers there who always are very much eager to take risk. Some managers are also there who always try to avoid risk. Isn't it? Asana erokom? People are there who like to take risk. People are also there who always avoid to take the risk, right? So, uncertainty avoidance index. What do you mean by this? Index. Uncertainty avoidance. This index actually measures the extent or degree. Extent or degrees. How an individual will try to avoid risk. Avoid uncertainty. If the index is high means that kinds of culture or people within that kinds of culture, that means with high uncertainty avoidance index, these people always try to avoid risk because their index is high. They never eager to take any kinds of risk. So what kinds of organization you can assume here? In this case, you will see each and every decision is taken by more than one people. Not one people is taking one decision. Right? That means bureaucracy is there. Several ladders will be there. Several managerial posts will be there. Where? You will see all this in the case of organization or in the case of those kinds of organization whose uncertainty avoidance index is high. Clear? But uncertainty avoidance index is low. What does it mean? In these kinds of culture, people are always eager to take risk. Risk, right? That means here you can say decision is taken very much promptly by one individual. And they always try to go beyond their own level. Or they always try to take different kinds of risk. That is all about uncertainty avoidance. Some people try to avoid uncertainty and some are like to take uncertainty. Clear? Okay, then then I show power distance index. Power distance. Within the culture, you can power distance index. What do you mean by this? Power distance. That means distance in distributing power to different people. And here power distance measure the extent or degrees how okay, I'll just describe the line according to you. That is the extent to which the less powerful actually just here attentively. These measure the index or degree how the less powerful people within the culture they feel themselves or they think the power is distributed unequally. Unequally. It means that if the PD is high means the less powerful people are thinking that power is distributed biasly. That's why they always think there will be different level of manager, and initially there will not be any kinds of democracy. Why? Because they are thinking distance is high means they are thinking the power is distributed biasly. Biasness is there, right? So that's why as they have less power or they are less powerful people, so they cannot take any kinds of decision making or they cannot take part in any kinds of decision making. That's why they are less powerful. Clear? But if the PD is low means here the people are thinking that is normally the power is distributed legally or lawfully. That's why democracy will be there. That's why everyone can take part in decision making. Clear? That is all about PD index. So culture will be there. Culture will be this slide, right? The last one is masculinity and femininity. And femininity. Masculinity and femininity. Some culture there, as for example Japan. In Japan, masculine, there is huge amount of gender diversification. In Japan, male is the symbol of power, male is the symbol of action, male is the symbol of everything. Masculine is there, diversification is there, gender diversification is massive. But in the Finland, they think there is no difference between male and female. That's why there is no sort of gender diversification. So you can assume culture may be suppose in our country, we provide priority male rather than female, right? So masculinity. In the case of masculinity, people are always focused on having status, duties, responsibilities. But in the case of femininity culture, people always focus way of doing things, how the quality of the product can be done well, how you can create quality environment, everything else, rather than power or something other. Here, so one is masculinity, where male are provided priority, and that is femininity, where there is no kinds of gender diversification. So these are the four different kinds of dimension, or you can say four dimensions of culture according to Hofstede. Clear? Individualism, collectivism, individual, collective. Then uncertainty avoidance. Some try to avoid uncertainty, some try to take risk. Then power distance, that is less powerful people maybe think the power will be distributed biasly or power will be distributed normally. Then masculinity and femininity, in some cases gender diversification is there, in other there is no sort of gender diversification. Clear? These are the four dimensions of culture according to Hofstede. End of this chapter. Let's what say. End of this chapter, another question is discussed, that is formal and informal. What do you mean by this? Formal organization. We have discussed earlier, organization has a setup. Right? Organization is a setup. The setup is such that number of people can work together to achieve a cohesive goal. Right? So there will be an organogram, or even you can say there will be a structure, how the authority and responsibility actually delegated. Who will take decision, who will do the decision, who will follow the instruction, everything is there. Formality. We have discussed this. But informal, within each formal structure, there is a informal structure of this formal. What do you mean by this? Informality. Just think yourself, your boss, in formal organization, formal structure, Mr. X is your boss. So you have to follow his instruction. Right? In the informal way, it may be possible one of your friend become your boss. হতে পারে না? So outside his cabin there is a friendly relationship. But within the cabin there is a subordinate boss relationship. Within a meeting there is a subordinate boss relationship. But outside the meeting there is a friendship. Right? So informal organization actually created automatically in all formation because the human being is social. Humans are social beings. They always try to make some relationship. They always try to gossip with others. They always try to interact with others. That's why you can say in each formal organization there is a informal part of the organization which support the formal organization. That is all about this organizational culture. Go through. Okay, thank you.